Nobody hit it?
Good evening and welcome to the January 26, 2012 meeting of the Goffstown Planning Board. I'm going to go around the room and introduce the members of the board that are here. And first start out by saying thank you for your patience to the audience. Brian.
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Phil Devan's
John Heichel.
Mark Warden, member.
Gayla Breck, recording secretary.
Alan Jayton, chair.
Steve Dutton, alternate.
Collis Adams.
Simone Duhamel, alternate.
Barbara Griffin.
Tim Redmond, vice chair.
Carl Foley, alternate.
Thank you all. Just a couple housekeeping items I think we can take care of very quickly because I want to get it into the record and approve before we carry forward. And that would be the minutes of January 12, 2012. Members of the board, do we have any corrections, additions, edifications?
Mr. Chair, I
Yes.
just had a question with regards to page 22 of 25, with regards to the zoning ordinance amendment number 9 proposed by petition. I noticed that there was a vote, but I didn't notice there was a motion stated for vote number 1.
There wasn't a motion made.
There wasn't?
The
There
minutes
was-
were, the
yeah.
video was checked.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
Motion approved as written.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if you want to get a second first, I'll make a comment after that.
Second.
A motion by Collis, seconded by Mark. Yes.
I received comment after the meeting from Mr. Tony Martz. He had requested specifically when he sent his 4 letters of support, he requested that they each be read into the record. And so I mentioned to him that, you know, I obviously couldn't just add it to the minutes, but that I could read it into the next meeting minutes. Or if you want to have this read right now and then add it into the minutes for last week, we can do that too.
I don't think we can have.
However you want to do that.
The board precedence does not read into the minutes.
Yeah, and I don't care to hear them read into the minutes.
We haven't done it in the past,
We've seen it, I've seen them.
and the chair is going to recognize the submission of those 4 documents in the minutes, and they should be established as such.
Okay.
And I'm not going to sit here and listen to those 4 letters being written, spoken into the minutes. Members of the board?
There was a
Is
motion
there
to
concurrence?
approve.
Fine with me.
Okay.
Accepting those 4 letters into the, as a part of the minutes, but we're not reading them into the minutes.
I'm not doing anything with them. We've got a motion on the minutes, and as far as I'm concerned, we're not
Okay.
amending the minutes with them.
Members of the board, any other comments on the minutes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Who opposed? John opposed. Chair votes yes.
Abstain? I wasn't at the last meeting.
1 abstention. Motion carries. Thank you. Now, in terms of those 4 letters, they should become part of each one of the petition files. And that they were noticed in the minutes, which I think is what we normally do with correspondence and whatever submitted by anybody. So I believe that's consistent with our past precedents of the board. How about this acceptance replacement of the tenor bond? That's on this evening's handout. Brian, can you tell us a little bit about the antenna bond?
Mr. Chair, simply, there's a company that's going to be taking over responsibility for the tower. And so they wanted to offer up a bond in their name for the removal bond, and then have you release the bond for the other company. The new company that would be assuming the responsibility is Industrial Tower and Wireless LLC. And the company to be released of the bond is Flow TV Incorporated. It's basically for the it's up on Perimeter Road. There's a big tower up there on MUR Tower, and there was some equipment put on it a couple of years back, and as part of any tower, a removal bond of $25,000 is required. And so if the tower is ever abandoned, then the town has that $25 to be able to go and remove the equipment in the tower. So that's essentially what it is. Requires a vote from the planning board to accept the new bond and to release the old one, and that's why it's here.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board? This approval tracking form, is that signed by you, or does it have to be signed by the chair?
Just signed by myself after the action is taken.
So any motion would authorize our planning and zoning administrator to sign this document on behalf of the planning board, approving the release of the bond and the acceptance of the new bond.
So moved.
Tim, you had a question?
No, I was gonna make a motion, but I'll second Mark's motion to,
Okay.
but do you wanna put the numbers in there, Mark, the lot number and everything, the map and lot numbers?
It's map 40, lot 55 for the record.
Okay, yeah, that's good, as amended, or as completed with the lot numbers.
Tim, second?
Yes, I did second it.
Any members of the board, any discussion? And that also authorizes our planning and zoning administrator to sign the documents?
Yes.
Tim?
Yeah, so moved.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the board? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. I'll put this back in the folder here, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Did you want to treat that new application, Brian, first, or did you want to go into the zoning amendment?
I think we should just go in order of the zoning amendment at this
Okay.
point.
Next item on other business is reconsideration request on board's vote to not recommend the following petition from the January 12th, 2012 meeting in zoning ordinance amendment number 9, proposed by petition. What can you bring us up to speed, and who's requesting the reconsideration?
Mr. Chair, the reconsideration request came from attorneys Cronin and Bisson. John Cronin submitted a request. I think he's asked a representative to be here tonight. And they basically are requesting that the town reconsider the vote at the last planning board meeting to not recommend the change of the historic district warrant article, which would remove approximately 306 feet by 350 feet to the center line of the road from the historic district. And they had a letter which I copied to each of you stating that they wanted this recommendation to reconsider. And then also, as part of your packet tonight, you have a letter, memo from Derek Horn, Assistant Town Administrator, representing the Historic District Commission, that they took a vote at the last meeting last night to discuss this petition zoning article and to recommend that the planning board reconsider this, and that they recommend it on the article, that they recommend it for the 2012 ballot. Also, Elizabeth Derboul's here tonight to say a few words from the Historic District Commission representing them. And so if it's all right with the chair, I would like to allow her a few minutes to speak on that.
Hold off on that for a second. Did everybody get a copy of the letter from Attorney Bisson
Yes.
in your packet? Had a chance to read it?
I have a question
I
about.
have the
Sure.
original.
I have a
Yes.
question about that. Are they the lawyers for the property owner?
Correct.
They are.
Okay. It didn't seem to address that in this letter
It,
specifically.
it doesn't
Because at
it
this
doesn't
point, we don't
mention,
Yes, it
lot and
does.
map numbers.
Oh, it just says Colway Realty Trust, that's the owner of,
We don't know
Oh,
that.
okay.
Okay, all right, so we got that squared away, so, before we get into discussion or presentations, I think it would be appropriate to talk about the motion for reconsideration, because there's no motion on the floor, has not been seconded and voted on, to even reconsider.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
I'll second it.
The motion on the floor by Phil, seconded by Barbara. Now, the request for reconsideration is on the floor, and the discussion is limited to that. So, going around the room, is anybody wishing to speak in reference to this motion for reconsideration? Barbara?
We've been asked to reconsider by parties who were involved in the direct petition. I'm not quite sure I am in favor of such an action, because I think we could leave ourselves open to simply getting reconsideration requests every year after zoning votes. But in light of the fact that the HDC has since apparently met and voted on it, which was not available to us at the last time we discussed this, I'm gonna vote in favor of the reconsideration. So that's all I have to say.
Tim?
Well, it seems that if we had more information, I was not at the last meeting, so I'm going to make sure that's clear. But if the last meeting, it seemed to be some lack of information for the board members to consider, and I think that in the future, all the information should be available to the board for consideration of a vote.
Collis?
I think we do have new information I'd like to reconsider.
Mark?
No comment.
Phil?
Just comment, follow-up, if at the last minute meeting that we took action on this, I was asked if the HTC had taken a position on this, and I had said no. And since that time, they have met and they have taken a position on it.
Okay. Steve?
I have nothing further to add.
You've been very quiet. Do you have any comments?
No comment.
No comments.
All right. End of discussion. Are there any further considerations, or we have a full board, so it's voting members only? Call for a vote then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair opposes it. 6-1.
So okay.
You have a
So
question?
are you waiting now on a motion to
No.
support the ballot recommendation?
No, we have a vote to reconsider our vote.
Well, we're reconsidering it now.
Prior
We're
to,
reconsidering it now.
prior to
But prior to
discussions
taking
and
that
motions,
vote,
though, could we hear from the
I'm
Historic
gonna
District
open
Commission?
it up to anybody from the public who wishes to speak to the board. Yes. Who would like to speak in reference to this reconsideration?
I would.
Yes, ma'am, you can have the floor for a while.
I'm Elizabeth DeBreau. I'm the
I'm-
chairman of the Historic District Commission. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak. I will not tax everyone's patience. I'm sure you have all heard a lot about this case. The HDC takes our responsibilities to oversee the historic districts very seriously. This has been an ongoing issue with us for well over a year, I believe. Our top priority is to preserve the house. It's a historic home. It was built in 1850. We feel it's a very important part of the district. What the petitioner has asked for is part of a settlement that will allow us to preserve the house, which is why the HDC agreed unanimously last night in favor of, we are recommending that you recommend to the voters to support this warrant article. And that is really the reason why. We feel that this is the best way, the best means we have to protect the house that's on the property. So that was really all I wanted to say. I had heard through the grapevine that there were questions last time and that there wasn't anybody here from the HDC who could answer them, so I'm here to answer any questions or any other information I can provide to the board.
We'll go right around the room. Carol, do you have any questions?
No.
Tim?
No, I don't have any questions.
Barbara?
I have a question. At the meeting that you had last night, was anyone there from the petitioner, in regards to the house? Because I just looked at the record and I thought that there was a statement made by the applicant at our meeting last month that if this all went through, the house would be preserved and fixed up, and it's not in the record, so my recollection must be wrong. And I'm wondering whether there were any representations made to the ZBA, because I mean, to the Historic District Commission, because I know your focus is on the house and the preservation of the homes in that district, and I'm wondering whether there have been any statements made to your commission on the record in regards to the house.
Well, there was, no one from the petitioner was there last night. And I'm not sure how much I can comment on this because, as you know, it's an ongoing legal dispute and we are in public session. All I can say is that the HDC was very clear with Attorney Drescher and with Brian's well familiar with this case and Derek is well familiar with this case that, like I said, our priority is saving the house and that we would love to work out a settlement if that was a result. So all I can say is that we are assuming that since a settlement is in the works, that a part of that settlement is the preservation of the house.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Carlos?
Nothing.
Steve?
All set.
Mark?
No, thank you.
John?
I am. Are you asking that the board does put on the, to recommend to be published in the voter guide, that the board recommends
Yes,
this petition?
yes.
And what is the purpose of the board doing that as opposed to keeping not recommend as the board voted on last time?
Because the public is very influenced by the recommendations of this planning board. I mean, I'll be honest, as a voter, when I look at the planning board warrants, I cannot make heads or tails of them. And I pretty much go with what this board recommends. And I do think it's important. I think it will have a big difference. Attorney Drescher, who was here earlier, is probably more capable of answering the question on how important it is to the overall settlement. But as I understand it, it is an important piece of the settlement. And the HDC feels that it's in the best interest of preserving the house for the settlement to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Phil? Brian?
I'm all set.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in reference to this reconsideration? Yes, sir. Please come up and state your name.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Daniel Muller from Cronin and Bisson. I will just speak very briefly. I'm here on behalf of Attorney Cronin tonight. Obviously, we were the party that asked for reconsideration. Just to clarify, this is a part of the settlement or proposed settlement at this point in time. We have worked, my firm has worked with the heirs of the Dow family, in addition to Attorney Drescher, in an effort to come up with a resolution that satisfies the interests of all parties involved. To that end, the portion of the lot where the structures, the house and the like, are currently located will remain in the historic district. My understanding is that the current appeal, where my client initially looked to demolish the house, will be withdrawn as a part of the settlement as well. So as I indicated earlier, our purpose here is to try to find a resolution that protects all the interests, including those of our client, and therefore we would ask for reconsideration. I'd be happy to take any questions, but my preference is to keep this brief and to the point.
Okay. Members of the board have any questions? Barbara?
I understand that what you stated. I would like to know whether you have the authority to address the issue of the demolition permit for the house and work on the house, because I understand what you're talking about is the lawsuits, docket markings, whatever, in regards. And is this petitioned warrant article the only thing that docket markings are contingent on? And is there any representation by your client as to his intent as to the house that the Historic District Commission is seeking to preserve?
Obviously, the current appeal deals with the effort to demolish the house. If that's is withdrawn, there will be no permit to, the only approval right now is for the barn. The challenge in court.
The demolition permit
Yes.
is for the barn.
The demolition, let me go back and just give a little bit of background, and I'll try to keep it very brief. The original petition sought to demolish both the house and the barn, including with respect to the house, including the addition. The only approval that was given was with respect to the barn, and I believe one of the outbuildings. The decision not to grant it with respect to the house was appealed. That appeal is currently pending. The notion under the proposed settlement here is that appeal, which would seek to demolish the house, would be withdrawn. So there would be no appeal of the decision denying the ability to demolish the house. So the house would stay. I can't make any representations in terms of the long-term beyond that.
Okay.
But the proposal is that the effort to demolish the house would be stopped, because that's what the appeal is about.
And I think my other question was this warrant article passing the only contingency for withdrawal of the lawsuit?
It's a part of the global resolution.
How about the only unresolved portion of withdrawing the lawsuit?
I believe at this point it is, the issue has been worked out with the heirs at this point. As far as I'm aware, the only issue left is whether the historic district gets amended or not, too.
Tim?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to direct a question through you to the Historic District Commission. We've heard discussion of the property, and this is the first time I have heard that the barn may be demolished as part of this. And I would think that the HDC would have wanted the barn and the home as a unit saved, because the barn has as much historic value as the home does. So by you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to know if the question could be presented to the HDC regarding the barn and the home versus the home only.
Elizabeth, would you like to address that?
Sure. We had, both the house and the addition and the barn were inspected. In fact, they were inspected several times. There was some dispute between the petitioner and the HDC about who would inspect it and the quality of the inspection. At the time, we were still trying to work this out at the HDC level. And our decision to allow them to tear down the barn was sort of twofold. The petitioner was, of a great concern to him was the overall cost of repairing the house, the addition, and the barn. And so basically the barn was also in the most dilapidated state out of all three of the structures we're talking about. It was pretty far gone. So HDC, in an attempt to sort of compromise, allowed him to tear down the barn, and in the hopes that then it would not be quite so much money, and he would be more encouraged to save the house and the addition.
So now that we're in a settlement mode here, and we're going to consider granting more land to be removed from the historic district, you have not backpedaled on your desire to keep the barn? You're willing to do both?
I do not believe that it is within our power to revoke something like that. This was, once we made our decision, it was bumped up to the ZBA. And the
Okay,
HDC has effectively been out of it. And as far as I know, we do not have the ability to revoke a certificate of appropriateness once we have granted it.
Thank you.
Carlos?
All set.
Mark?
Is the barn as old as the house?
I have no clue.
Yes, as far as I know, I believe it is.
I mean, Alls I see is a yellow house and a yellow barn, that's it. Bill? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else wishing to speak in reference to this discussion and reconsideration? Well, I think we may be on a precedent-setting course here this evening. Because in my tenure of the board, we've never entertained a reconsideration of a vote.
That's the benefit of Alan's rules.
Yeah.
So, this is new territory, uncharted territory.
So the chair could deny it, if he so
Excuse me?
chose. The chair could deny it if he so chooses.
No, they don't.
I don't think I'd want to try that one.
Oh. Okay, I'm just asking if he could.
What I would suggest is that,
Tied, and then there was another motion.
as a chair, I have an overall responsibility. As a member of the board, I have a different kind of responsibility. And I'll speak to our board's concern first, and that is, they've come to us with factual information. It's more information that they shared with us on the most appropriate night that it should have been. And I don't find fault with them for that, for not presenting it correctly. I'm not particularly threatened by lawsuits, or we might do this or we might do that, because half the time I see them do whatever they darn please. So, as the chair, I'll defer to any alternate and member of this board for comment before I'd like to have a discussion. If there was no discussion, then I'm gonna call for a vote. We may not like the results. So we'll go around the room. No heavy sighs. John?
Go slow, 'cause I have something I wanna say, I wanna ask.
Mark?
Even though we got a little bit more information tonight, I have no intention of changing my vote from the previous one.
Steve, you had an opportunity to vote last time, but not tonight.
That is true.
So, any perception?
I tend to agree with Mark. I understand that we've received some additional information tonight, some new facts that would have been great to have that the first time around, but I haven't heard anything that would make me change my vote.
Who else voted on the matter?
I have no comment.
Okay. Barbara? Collis?
I've heard nothing that would convince me to change my vote either.
Tim?
I didn't vote in the last meeting, I'm still figuring it out.
Bill?
I have no comment.
So, I don't see a whole lot of comments going on here. All right. Any further discussion on this?
I have a,
Okay.
as I'd like to just say, that the process that we went through last week, and I guess one of my main concerns is, are there any abutters, or are there any other folks that are not present tonight that may not be in favor of this, because we want to make sure that we do what's right, and the process is really important here. Last week was the week. This is a new week, and this was kind of brought upon us, and I'm not sure that, I want to make sure that there was sufficient notice to anyone that may be affected to this, neighbors or abutters who have concerns in the town that are not here tonight because they thought that last week or last meeting, it was done. I just want to make sure.
It's a matter of record. Brian, correct me. The other petitioned articles, were the abutters notified with any public notice at all, other than, in writing, like with a normal plan application? I don't believe we do that, do we?
It's not a typical requirement. It's a requirement for us to put a public hearing notice in the newspaper. But, and for the one that John Heichel had presented, we did send a letter to each of the property owners to make them at least aware that their property was under consideration. The other ones had been submitted by the sole property owner, and so they were aware. We didn't do any letter notification to them or to abutters of their property. So,
Seeing that you notified abutters on one petition, why didn't we do it on the?
well, we didn't notify abutters. We notified the property owners that were affected by the proposed rezone.
The petition warrant article that dealt with a number of lots,
Yes.
not all the lot owners were on the petition. So all of the lot owners received a letter notifying that their property was included in the petition to change the zoning. It was
Okay.
not an abutter notice.
Okay, all right. All right, so I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
we didn't have an obligation to notify anybody about this reconsideration.
No.
And the answer is no. Okay. All right. Then, seeing that there's no further discussion, looking around the table, I'll call for a vote, and
No, I think you need a motion.
You need a motion before you can vote, right?
then I need a motion.
I'll make a motion that we place this on a ballot to recommend.
Not hearing a motion, a second, the motion fails. Anybody else care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to recommend it. Can I make that motion again? I'm a little confused because there are two people who voted against the not to recommend that I thought were not changing their position, so I thought they would second the motion.
Well, back up a second. Are you going to make a motion?
Phil's motion was not seconded, maybe somebody will second mine. I'll make a motion to recommend.
I will second that.
Recommend what?
To recommend the warrant article.
That the clarification that the board votes to recommend
Right.
the warrant article. Okay, with that clarification, I still second it.
Right, isn't that what you did last week? You voted to not,
That's what you didn't say it.
Wait a second.
That's what I did.
I want to back up.
I did.
Well,
Place it on the ballot, recommend it.
The chair's not accepting that motion yet.
Wait,
okay, all right, I'm out.
No.
wait.
Phil made a motion to recommend that it be placed on the ballot with a recommendation of the board. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it did not
Actually-
receive a second.
Actually, I'd like to have the secretary read that back, because that's not what Phil said.
No,
You
it's
just
not.
added some words to what Phil
I
said.
did.
Why don't you read back what Phil said?
I write it in note form and I elaborate later, but I noted that Phil made a motion to recommend that that it's on the ballot.
I was getting ready to second Phil's motion, but he never finished it, the whole text. That's why I didn't speak up. I was waiting for him to finish.
He didn't, as far
He
as.
didn't
I'm-
say everything
the
Alan
only
said,
thing
though.
The only thing he didn't say was the warrant article on the ballot. He
No.
said on the ballot.
Well, it will be on the ballot.
Obviously.
All right, so let's start over again. Now, technically, Phil made a motion that did not get a second.
That was correct. And you declared the motion null and void,
Yes.
or something
And
like
then,
that.
No, he declared my motion null and void, he
No,
wouldn't
he
accept it.
no, he did not. He said
No,
not
he-
to accept
he
it
said-
at this time.
Alan said his failed for lack of a second.
Right,
That's
and
right.
mine was not accepted, it was null and void. So it's up to the rest of you guys. We're done.
now,
He said
would
not
you,
to
can
accept
you
that.
basically kindly explain the basis for your motion, and I may, what do you
Elaborate.
want the outcome to be?
I wanted the outcome to be a motion before the board to be voted on. That was all I was trying to do, was to get a motion before the board for a vote on the reconsideration. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't declaring I was voting for it, I wasn't declaring I was voting against it. I was trying to get the motion on the floor, and the motion to get on the floor would be to vote in the affirmative that the warrant article requesting zoning ordinance as to zoning ordinance amendment number 9 proposed by the proposed by petition go on the warrant as recommended by the planning board.
Now, having said that, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Phil.
You already had a second.
No? He was wavering, I know. Any discussion on that motion? And the motion is that the planning board is recommending this petitioned article to be on the town warrant as recommended by the board. Seeing that, I'll call for a vote. A yes vote is an affirmative that it goes on the board and onto the vote at the town meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? 5-2-0.
Who's not voting?
Alternates.
Alternates.
Okay,
It was you and.
Because we're full boards here tonight.
just want to make sure that, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I make a comment, just for the record, that, that when we were discussing the petition that was filed from Moose Club to Dana's Park, that has so graciously been labeled mine.
Sorry, Bill.
That someone from the condominiums did receive a letter that this was happening, and he did come and speak on that. So, and they were not part of the area that was going to be changed in their zoning. So I just want that to be made on record, that that I'm not sure that only the people that lived in that area received those letters.
Okay.
Oh, I think didn't that individual say they got that as part of the industrial corporation that they heard about it? But I don't know, you need to check on that, Brian.
Okay. I don't know
It's not
anything to
I'm
that.
just saying it for the record, that's all.
On the record, that's fine.
Saying it for the record, for the
Okay.
minutes.
Moving on. Under new business, map 17, lot 95, site plan waiver request to relocate Barb's Coffee Plus to 651 Mass Road with the addition of a seasonal ice cream takeout. Property owner Gaston and Teresa Choquette, zone commercial, no exterior changes are proposed to structure. You have some additional information before you in the file, and Brian, can you bring us up to speed?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Barbara Lambert is the applicant here, and she owns Barb's Coffee Plus. She actually currently is operating a business just a little ways down the street. She's in one of the units that is owned by Roger Bergeron, next to the Rite Aid and the Abingdon Square condos.
Along the gun shop in.
Where the gun shop is, yes. And she is looking to just move a little bit down the street. They found this place at 651 Mass Road and thought it would be suited for them well. They came to me and asked if they would have to do anything in order to move in there. And in evaluating it, I had to kind of make the determination that it didn't necessarily fall under the easy ones, and it could be determined as a change of use. The reason why is as part of the move, they want to also be allowed to do a seasonal ice cream shop. And to me, I was looking in the zoning ordinance and couldn't find anything that had to do with specifically ice cream shops or anything like that, other than restaurant use. And so I felt it was appropriate to maybe put this to the planning board for a decision of whether or not a site plan would be required, because part of the rules and regulations that are in the development regulations state that if someone is proposing to do a business that is a change of use, then a site plan is required. And in this case, it's kind of maybe sort of a restaurant, but not quite, in the fact that it's an ice cream shop, and you know, people would be coming up for to get some ice cream and maybe sit down for a little bit, but not to the full scale of a full-blown restaurant. So basically, they're looking at that site. There are other issues that I found as well with that. You know, one of the things is in order to not be considered a change of use, you have to meet the parking regulations, and parking regulations for restaurants are actually much higher than what it is for typical commercial space. Typical commercial space is only one space per 200 square feet. For restaurants, though, it jumps up to one parking space per 75 square feet, plus then 5 spaces when takeout food counters service is available. The second floor of the building does have office space, and I don't believe would be leased to this applicant. So that would be kind of a separate use in the same building, thus kind of making that a mixed-use structure. The site plan that you all have in front of you was a site plan that was approved many years ago, and had 8 parking stalls. I'm not sure what regulations they were going by when they approved that, but the driveway for those parking stalls is only 17 feet wide. Does not meet our driveway width requirements. We currently require 24 feet for a driveway in between stalls. So that's one issue that I felt necessary to bring before your attention. The 2 uses for previous use, retail and office, required 12 spaces. So they were already underutilized per our ordinance, so you know, is non-conforming for the requirement of parking, whereas they only have 8. And again, I made the determination a few months back to allow them to go into the place where they currently are with Roger Bergeron. As a retail use, they were basically selling items for retail, along with, I believe, just, you know, adding coffee to the mix. So if that were to remain that, then I would have made that same determination for this place. However, with the addition of the ice cream, I felt it was a little more intense, and it may create a parking issue, but you know, with on-street parking on Mast Road and maybe some possible parking availability at the restaurant next door, there may be enough parking availability that it's not going to be an issue for the board. Other considerations are, you know, there's a few other ice cream shops around town, Magoo's being one. There's one here on Church Street, and then Devrance Farm has one. Those have all operated, some of what, the one on Church Street, I believe, doesn't have much parking, but they've operated and not had any issues per se that I've been notified about. And then the one at Devrance, I mean, they obviously have enough parking, and Magoo's has parking on both sides, so you know, different ones to compare against, and I'm not sure if this scenario meets those same requirements, or, you know, how they would compare, but just to bring up some of those other issues. So basically, the request before you tonight is to determine whether or not to, that this is a change of use and would require a site plan, or whether to waive the site plan requirement and the accompanying parking requirement. My recommendation would be to waive it and to waive the parking requirement, subject to that they would paint a van accessible handicap stall on site and make sure that all those rules and regulations are in place for ADA. And that's it. That's my recommendation. The applicant is here tonight. This was not published as a public hearing, however, because it's the fact of the board's determining whether or not to make them go through the public hearing process. It's not necessarily something that we would notify everyone of at this point in time.
Putnam's also has an ice cream stand, right?
Yes.
Megan, you've joined us, so there must be something you'd like to say about this.
I'm just here for entertainment.
Sure.
No, I mean, Brian had asked me to come for this site.
Yeah.
I didn't have a chance to go out and look. I printed some maps of the area. You know, I was concerned, as Brian was, with parking, you know, with 17 feet. I mean, the cars would essentially pull in and have to probably back out, you know, into the, is it Plummer Street right there?
Yeah.
Under
Yeah.
Plummer Street, you know, they wouldn't really be able to turn around in there very well. You know, they're not, you know, I don't think they're planning on doing any site changes, so it's not like there's really anything to look at in regards to that. There's a catch basin across the street. I'm not sure what direction that drains to. Again, I can go look at all that stuff, but Brian made it sound like if they're not going through any of the site plan things that I wouldn't have anything to comment on, so.
Okay. Members of the board? Bill?
I have a question. On the aerial view that Brian provided us,
Yes.
is something that's on the property in the back, and I was just wondering, does that affect, driving around the back, does that affect any of the parking spaces?
Because that does not appear to be on the plan,
Right.
plan.
Right, on any of the two others, the one either by Duval and the one that's shown here with parking spaces.
The little site plan goes back to the 1980s. The aerial is more recent, and there's a storage trailer and a whole series of junk in the back of that building.
The trailer that will be removed.
Tim?
So does that make those two parking lots, would they be joined, or is there a change in elevation next to that storage trailer?
There's a fence back there between the two.
And is the fence solely on this property?
Don't know.
Well, it would appear to be by the black box that's drawn around the, does that represent the property line, Brian?
Yeah.
I tried to best represent it. I mean, it's tough in an aerial view like that
Well, that
to
would,
do anything.
if that
but-
trailer came out of there and the fence was removed, it would greatly enhance the traffic flow on the property and help a lot with their parking issues.
The black line is actually much closer to where the trailer is itself. You can see that the black line hits the top of the roof on the
Yeah.
building. There's not much of a side lot line there. If you look on your plan that you have before you,
So is there
You'll
any
see
parking
with
on
the-
that side of the building, Brian?
not on the side, no.
On the side next to the old D'Angelo's property?
Not, well, on D'Angelo's property there is,
Right, well, I'm
But-
talking about this site.
but not on this site, no.
So the parking would be limited to Plummer Street and behind the building.
Correct.
There is no on-street parking. I'd like to make sure that's
Okay.
point, so you said on-street parking. There is no on-street parking on Mass Road there,
Okay.
as long as that's in the record.
Okay. Just going around, Barbara?
I sort of recognized what Phil pointed out on the drawing and had a question about it, so, if we were to go forward, there would be a B in regards to waiving the site, that the storage trailer be removed and no material in the parking area whatsoever. I'm not out to give this applicant a hard time on this. You know, the Coffee Plus store went in, there's a lot of traffic there. I don't know that I'd want to move from being next to the gun store, because I think that probably generates a lot of, traffic will wait to him to speak up, but I guess I'm okay with the seasonal ice cream. I don't know that we've done a specific site plan for any of them. But I think, as always, this is contingent with the parking being managed, and if it's not, we can haul them in to do a site plan.
That's right.
And that would absolutely be a requirement if I was to vote on it. Because I can see where there'll be no problem now, because D'Angelo's is next to it and it's empty. There used to be some dumpsters around, you know, I mean, the whole property line was a little sketchy between the two properties anyways, with all the stuff around. But, you know, people would be able to park at D'Angelo's at this point, but, you know, if the D'Angelo's building became occupied again, I can see where issues might arise and they might have to come back. But at this point, I think I'm willing to let it go without a site plan.
But I don't think we want to acknowledge as a board that we would condone parking in
No,
D'Angelo's.
I'm not condoning it. I'm
All right.
saying, I'm looking at the spots here and what would be generated as compared to what she has now and thinking it can probably be managed. So that's my comment.
Look very concerned, Carlos.
Well, I have no problem with this. I think it's a good reuse of the property. There's talk about the trailer, and where is this fence that's being discussed? Is it?
Right next to the, apparently right next to the trailer.
Yeah, on the back side of the trailer.
No, it's not between D'Angelo's and this property. It's
Just
on
along
the back
line.
side.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, no problem.
There's a
with
fence between there and the residential
that.
property.
Yeah, okay. I have no problem with that.
So there's no fence
Steve?
between the trailer
No,
and D'Angelo's?
no, there's not.
With, with the additional requirements that Barbara pointed out, I'd be comfortable with this as well.
Mark?
I like coffee and ice cream. I'd like to see this move forward as quickly and easily and smoothly for the applicant as possible.
Must be close to your house, huh?
Yeah, it's walking distance.
John?
I'm all set with it. I agree with Mark.
Phil?
Yeah, where do you propose putting the window for the ice cream?
Well, we're going, okay, we'll ask it, we'll have a chance to ask that. The applicant, I'm gonna have to
Okay.
come up and speak.
All right.
Okay. Board's had a chance to ask a few questions, maybe that enlightens you a little bit. Would the applicant like to come up here and tell
Well,
us?
I'd like to make a motion that the applicant, are we gonna, do we make this a site plan by making it determining that it doesn't have a regional impact?
I don't know.
That's why
I
we
wasn't
make that
sure how
motion
to,
that-
Right.
how to treat
I'd
that,
like to
so.
hear what she does, because
Okay.
I don't know what your business
Well,
is.
we're at two, we haven't done
And
one
as the
yet.
chairman, I'd like to hear what you do as the coffee shop. You know, please come up here.
Samples.
I like coffee
Do
too.
you have any decaf with you? I'd like some.
Sorry.
You
Hi.
don't need- you don't
Barbara
need-
Lambert.
Yes.
I own Barb's Coffee Plus. My whole idea would be to, it's in the center of Pinardville, and I'm looking to attract more walkers, people who are out walking, more so. As far as the gun shop goes, it's killing my business.
Is it really?
Yes, we literally have, Brian will tell you.
No pun intended, I assume.
Yeah, no pun intended. We have no parking. No parking.
Oh, 'cause they've got all the.
No, because,
It-
can I say what,
it-
I mean,
You can say anything you want. This is
when I
America.
rented my spot, there was spaces out front, and I was told that a parking lot was going to be put in on the side. That's the only way I would have taken the area that I had taken. And now that parking lot is not going to ever happen. So we have 5 parking spots, 5.
Okay.
And when people come to the gun shop, 99% of those people are driving trucks, and there's no parking.
Okay. Now, if you remember correctly, when we approved that site plan that goes around that building, part of that was the coordination of a parking lot for this building, if everybody remembers correctly. And it has never happened. I just want the board members to remember that.
This, the building in question.
Yes.
How long
Not,
ago
not
was
the
that?
building in
no.
question.
No.
Where she's located now.
Oh,
Yes.
that doesn't matter. Let's talk about this.
I'm just reaffirming the fact that long ago, there was a promised parking lot and it never occurred.
Well, then, let's haul them back in here on another day.
Okay. So, you serve coffee.
I retail K-Cups. I retail pods. They're New Hampshire. I do a lot of New Hampshire-based. I have New Hampshire coffee, New Hampshire wines, New Hampshire chocolates. I make gift baskets. I would love to be able to do New Hampshire ice cream.
So, when I look at the building, when I drove by today, I saw a lot of the vacuum business items in the window. So that all gets cleaned out?
Yes.
The whole building gets fixed up nicely the way you like
Yes.
it? And away you go. Okay.
Now, and you wanted to know where the window, somebody asked about the window. There's a ramp that comes up from the back,
Yes.
and we want to extend it. And put a window there so you can come up, and put just a few little tables so people, can get ice cream and sit.
Okay.
Same as with their iced if I have to put a kitchen in, I would like to be able to serve, iced coffee. People in that side down there would
Okay.
like to come down and get an iced coffee instead of going to Dunkin's or.
So if you wanted to expand outside the building, you will have to go through the permit
Yes.
process possibly. Okay. Any members of the board have a question of the applicant? Barbara?
The planner has recommended a handicap, parking site be
Yes.
painted, and are you all set with that?
Yes.
You understand that? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
The owner is here, the owner of the building.
Is there potential parking on Plummer Road?
I was told there is street parking.
Okay.
I also have spoken with D'Angelo's Realtor. Fingers crossed, maybe we could combine parking at some point when they know what they're actually going to be doing with that building.
That'd be a planning board decision.
No, that's,
And there is parking on Plummer Street, in between the driveways to the houses on Plummer Street.
Yeah.
Any other board members have a question of the applicant? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no, Phil.
Phil has a question.
Sorry.
Oh, I didn't see your hand, Phil.
It
I was
was
looking
up.
this way.
I know,
All right.
that's okay.
Go ahead, Phil.
On this drawing that I have here, on the back, is this the area that you're talking about for the window? Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a ramp here.
Yeah, that goes into the back door.
Is
He's
that-
doing it right.
Is that where the window
There's
would be?
another door here. It would be,
Along the side
I think
here?
you'll be able to park and cross the street
So
at the
does
fire
the ramp
station.
extend
Public
along the
property,
side?
there are plenty of spaces there.
Yeah.
I know, I
Don't go there.
is it okay if you
Too
come?
late?
Yeah.
He'd be able to explain it better.
That's all right.
Here's the ramp coming up.
Fire chief isn't here.
we don't have people even entered into the record.
Over here.
It's a great idea.
This is the building here. Here's Master, here's Plummet.
Maybe we can have a meeting down there one night.
I think Chief O'Brien does.
This ramp is coming up over here, up, over, and there's a door, right there. So what, the window that she's talking about will probably go somewhere in here. So what we wanna do, what she wants to do is to
Adjudicate
take
any
this
differences and if they decided to-
ramp right here and bring it up to this door right here.
Oh, so the ramp's being extended?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
But that would have to go to the planning board, I mean, for,
For a building
Right,
permit.
right.
What's being
Okay,
discussed?
and the tables that you mentioned that you wanted to put out would be,
If we
Yeah.
would
Leave it up
be
to staff.
right
Oh,
in
okay.
that area.
Okay.
Right.
okay.
What's being discussed,
The
Bill?
roof, the roof right now
Can we get the
is
meeting going
right
again,
here.
sir?
Right.
Let him have a couple minutes.
What I would like to
You're not
see
going
is that,
anywhere.
bring that roof all the way up.
Okay.
We were gonna be out of
Take
here
it
an
up.
hour ago.
Okay, so it would be,
It's a blizzard out there.
Okay.
Just wanted to get an idea of what it was gonna be.
Want to make sure no cars have rolled back and,
That's okay. We're all set.
make sure nobody's rolled into our cars.
Was that your shirt?
All right.
I don't know.
I'll get my hammer out here in a minute.
Please do.
Just out, Mr. Chairman, just so that everybody knows that the proposed window is gonna be facing Plummer Street.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So, seeing that, any other observations or questions from members of the board? Yes, Tim?
Want a motion?
I'm just asking questions for questions right now. What we really want to find out is that based upon presentation, I'm assuming we have no other remaining issues to resolve? Okay. Then I would be looking for a motion relative to the waiving of the site plan.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the site plan requirement and the accompanying parking requirements, subject to the applicant shall paint a van accessible handicap stall on-site with accompanying ramp.
The trailer?
And number 2 would be that the trailer is to be removed from the site completely, not just moved around to another location. And that, do we want to stripe the lot, Alan, or no?
No.
Okay. Well, then I would say that those 2 items would be the important.
And subject to review and approval by staff?
Subject to approval and review by staff with the condition that should parking become a problem, that the applicant would have to return to the planning board to resolve parking issues by way of a site plan.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? John?
On that handicap parking spot, there needs to be a sign also, just to, that the RSA is now that the sign has to be visible, either attached to the building or on a sign.
So I'll amend my motion.
Has to see it in case of a snowplow.
I'll amend my motion regarding the van handicap accessible stall with all accompanying signage and paint requirements as set forth by the RSA. Phil, do you
Is that
accept?
Phil?
Yeah, fine.
Any other members of the board have something that, relative discussion of this topic? I have just one question. What flavors of ice cream are you gonna have? Oh, stop it. Just kidding.
Everything
I
that Blake's
call the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'll be over. Goodbye.
We'll be there.
Alan, everything that Blake's said.
We done?
You can go see her now, she's right there, she's open right now. Right.
Most people don't understand what I said.
We're not discussing this tonight, are we? We're not discussing this.
Okay.
Good night.
It's, this other, you gave us this pile of information for information only, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't require any presentation?
Just so that we know what's
You-
gonna be in the annual report.
You are copied on it. It's basically a report of all the last year's impact fees and how much money we made and spent
Okay.
for those impact fees.
Right, and I'll leave that for future discussion at other meetings. Any other further business coming before the board this evening?
Motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Brian, on the agenda for February 9th, you have a discussion of the schools, building plans pursuant, is that pursuant to the vote at the polls? Why-
Yes.
But the polls aren't, we're not gonna, the issue's not gonna be decided before February 9th, is it?
No, they're coming back to present the revised plans based on our comments and discussions with the school district.
Can I respectfully say that that's totally premature, and we should not be hearing this until after this has been decided at the polls? We're gonna have a long meeting about nothing, because the voters haven't decided on it yet. I respectfully submit that we asked them to change that date until a date that's after the polls have decided whether the citizens are gonna support that warrant article or not.
Whether they've been approved by the voters to do an actual construction of these plans or not, they've still spent all the money to do all this design, and, you know, I think
Well, that's great, we can hear it a month later when it's been decided at the polls or not. Otherwise, it's another year before it's gonna come up before us again, and I don't really think we should spend time listening to this whole story, if it's gonna possibly get denied at the vote. Just my opinion.
And
Yes.
also, I just would like also to say that we, as a town, have sent out public notice public notices again for another public hearing to all of the abutters that this is gonna happen.
So we're not considering putting the horse before the cart before the horse at this point, are we? This is ridiculous, I'm sorry.
Good
Okay.
point.
Megan, do you have a,
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, really, they don't have to come back, do they, at all?
No, they didn't have to
This
come here
was,
the
this
first
was
time.
for the,
those are the
You
first
could've-
5
you
words
follow
out
our
of their
directions
mouth.
anyway, right?
We don't
Well, I
have to be
guess-
here.
Whatever they want.
I mean, I look at it as, we had, Brian and I sat down with them and had some meetings, and they're trying to make some
Right.
changes to accommodate some of our concerns. Now, regardless of whether it's premature or not, if they never come back again, at least I know that we've given them our input and they are taking some of it into consideration. I know where you're coming from, but my feeling was, I'm gonna work with them while they're willing to involve us, because if for whatever reason it got approved or whatever, or even later down the road, they don't have to come to us.
We're not gonna vote on a single thing.
They can come and give their presentation, and,
I'm with
I mean, you
Tim.
guys don't have to, you know.
And this is really for the benefit of the public, too. I mean, this is for the public's information, so that they have an opportunity to see what the school has been planning.
But why don't they just do it at a school board
Yeah,
meeting?
let the
and not
school
at-
do it.
They're gonna have an open house at the.
And anything that Meg has to offer to them could be delivered to them
Bartlett.
at their meetings,
Saturday?
and they decide internally to accept or reject
Done.
the town engineer's
We've
recommendations.
already done that.
So as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's a very nice gesture of the school to come forward and show us their nice plans that they used our impact fees to spend on,
Yeah.
instead of using impact fees to spend on the kids, but that's beside the point.
Well said.
I don't wanna hear it.
I don't want
I
to
don't
hear it
either.
either.
I'd rather eat ice cream with Barb.
Right.
That thing.
Yeah, I agree with
Way
you.
out of
They come and talk to us, and they talk to us, and we ask them to make changes, and we make recommendations, and they just blow them off. They
I-
move forward, whatever
Well,
plan
you
they
know,
want to move forward.
I'm
I-
sorry, but it just seems that if they're gonna take, I hate to say that they're not gonna do something until at least we've seen that, maybe we're gonna be surprised. Maybe there are gonna be some.
I kinda go with it, until you get a project in hand, which they don't have. There's no reason, no other applicant would be before this board.
There's no point in us having a public meeting on it.
So,
Mr.
I
Chair.
want a consensus. Who wants to hear it?
Well, the bottom line is.
The
public
notices were
notices have
sent.
been
I mean, I think this is
doesn't-
kind of something that we should have maybe talked
It's
about
like the
sooner
county.
than this, but.
Well, the funny thing
They
is, we
didn't
don't
need to
talk
come
about
to
this,
us.
Brian. This got scheduled, and who knew we were gonna have another meeting about this? When was it ever discussed?
They had said at the last one that,
That they were
and
gonna
in fact,
come
the
back.
planning
were
board
gonna
had
come back.
asked them to come back.
Well, I'm sorry, I wasn't
But
privileged to that stage.
Isn't this similar to what the county did when they came to us with the petition? They didn't really need the petition, and they didn't really need to come do the presentation, but we listened to it anyway. Isn't that true, or is
Well,
that?
we were part of the
No,
design.
they were
charrette.
invited. They were invited to.
They
do a
weren't, they were invited,
They
but
were
the process,
invited to do a presentation to the board.
and the difference is the school isn't being invited.
I think one thing, John, is I don't think the county understood that they were gonna have to apply for a zone change, because it's all agricultural land down there, and I think that's why we put the idea in their head that they had to have a petition warrant article to change the zone from.
So the county
agricultural.
does need to change the zone? They need a
I
petition?
believe they do, don't they?
They've known for at least.
No, they needed to do it because what they're trying to do is generate private use of the property to generate income, which would be taxed. And so
Non-governmental
they
use.
need a zoning change. If
So
they
they-
were just doing it, then they wouldn't need to get any approvals. They could do whatever they want on the agricultural land.
They've
as
known
long
for
as it
years
was
that they
for
had to get a
county
zoning change, John.
uses.
So they do need a zoning change?
So they
They've
needed a-
known for a long time.
Okay.
I've worked with the county for the last 15 years, and I know they've known for at least that long.
Please, John, don't get me wrong, and I agree with Phil, we should hear the school out. But when and if the time there's a project has been funded by the taxpayers, then with open arms, we welcome them in here. We will hear all their presentations and give our comments.
I don't disagree with you.
But for them to be coming in for a project and for us to have a whole meeting on it, when it hasn't been approved by the voters, I think it's premature.
Well, sounds like we're having it anyway, so let's put one in.
Well, McDonald's will be open during the meeting, if you all want to show
Is
up
that the
there
only
instead of here.
item on the agenda that night, Brian?
I'm not sure.
That's the Abington condos also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whose?
Oh, that'll be good.
Abington condos, the condos behind Rite Aid,
That's
up on
right.
the hill, off Moose Club Park, sorry, Moose Club Park condos.
Isn't that the one that didn't do that parking lot?
The
No,
original
Time, Phil, you're right on.
Yeah, that's
That
the
was
one.
that was a
Good.
responsibility of
Now we can drag them in,
Roger
they're gonna
Berger.
drag
on that.
themselves in.
That-
All right, Phil had a motion on the.
Are we all fired
I'll
up now?
second Phil's motion.
Yeah, now let's go.
I second Phil's motion.
Okay, all those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't think it's gonna be that bad. Have a good night.
I'll talk to Ray.